Okay, this is another episode of Pixels and Provocation with Senor Shusho Garcia. Hello
Hello.
and welcome, Shusho.
Thank you for having me again and having some of these conversations as we go along the way.
I noticed you're having a cup of cafe. Mind telling us what's in there?
Nespresso actually has taken and made cafecito de Puerto Rico.
Wow,
Oh, Nespresso and it's actually pretty good.
I can attest to that. That is one of their better blends that they've created.
It is nice. It feels a little bit like I have a little cup of cafe adjuntas or cafe yaucono. So they did a good job. I appreciate that from them.
That's awesome. So I wanted to continue our conversation and dive a little deeper into your past and kind of how you got here, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely. I think I'm in the spot in life where I'm very comfortable talking about my last 30 years roughly and how I got here.
Great. So let's reflect a little bit.
Mhm.
What was your first experience in the Continental professionally where you noticed there was a cultural difference?
Let me preface that with when I left Puerto Rico, I went to University of Miami. And Miami wasn't a big significant cultural shift because at the time, 1991, it was really the second floor of Havana. It was Havana 2.0, and me being what I call a Cuban Rican, because I'm from a Cuban family born and raised in Puerto Rico, it wasn't a big shift. But after university, and I got my first professional gig, it was in New Orleans, Louisiana. And that's when I noticed it. Um, the big shock, well, it sounds cliche again, the cultural shock, was when I was hired, but they gave me a condition that I was not allowed to talk in Spanish.
Tell me a little bit more about that.
Um, it was not written, it was on the office of my boss. It was, you cannot talk in Spanish
So your boss directly or indirectly told you
directly.
directly.
Directly. It's a, you're not allowed to talk in Spanish in front of other employees. And I was not allowed to talk in Spanish with fellow Spanish speaking employees in public areas of the floor. We were in a big building right by Veterans Memorial Boulevard in Metairie. We were not allowed to fraternize in Spanish if English speakers were around us.
Do you mind telling us what industry this was?
This was in publishing.
Publishing. Okay.
I was part designer and also what it was called at the time a systems manager. And I was doing integration for PDF workflows and Adobe Suite at the time. And I didn't make too much out of it at the time because, of course, I was younger. I was excited. Like, let me work here. Oh my God, I'm
Yeah,
working in
cutting
New
edge
Orleans.
technologies.
Exactly, and I got to be the person ordering brand new Macs and everything, so I was excited. But in retrospect, like for example, I was not allowed to have phone calls in Spanish either.
So if your mom called, you couldn't pick up saying,
I will have to find a separate room, like a hotel room on the office with a phone, so I could actually talk to my mom who didn't talk English. So that presented a little bit of a barrier. But in retrospect, what that told me was number one, the moment that you're inside this building, forget what your culture is. Like leave your culture at the door. And I had to let go of being Puerto Rican in my first job. I really had to. And no issues with them. Like I am actually still friends with some of them. And I had seen how everybody has grown in acceptance since those days. Um, which makes me happy, but it's a reflection of how we got here.
So just curious, being from New Orleans and having familial ties there, was French allowed?
Mhm. We actually had a publication that had a French columnist.
So that was okay, but not Spanish.
That was okay, but not Spanish.
Okay.
Mhm.
So then let me ask you this then. Has an employer ever taken advantage of the fact that you're bilingual? Or did you ever have to flip your accent?
Um, years later, years later, it came to me probably about 10, 15 years later, roughly, maybe a little bit less, where I was appointed by an electric company to actually travel pretty much nonstop to Latin America to be pretty much their official translator. And I had to adjust my Spanish to Colombian Spanish to be able to communicate across all Latin America. So for a while, I literally lived on planes and hotels with American representatives so I could be the person talking in my language. They could do sales and engineering in the Latin countries so I could speak my native language for them.
When did you learn that your accent could be an asset to you?
I gotta give thanks to Howard Stern on that one. I know, awkward person to give credit to, but it was Howard Stern. And I gotta go back to my first job in New Orleans. So I will drive to go to work in those early days, and I will listen to Howard Stern on the radio. This was way before Sirius XM and all that kind of stuff. And in the radio, Howard used to do people kind of going at each other's throats, right? And like Stuttering John and Baba Booey, they would pick up some colors and pit them against each other. But I was going through the fact that I couldn't talk Spanish and that they had a problem already with my accent coming into to NOLA. And Howard had a Portuguese surgeon talking to a guy from the United States. And the guy was making fun of the doctor's accent because he was thick. And Howard actually stopped the fight and said, "You know what? That guy has an accent, right? That means that he knows one language more than you." And it clicked. I was like, wait, that means true. I know two languages versus the people that are prohibiting me to use my own native language only know one. Which then it reflected on a song that keep haunting me, La Perla from Calle 13. Eso no resuelve al blanco sospechoso. This doesn't solve the suspiciousness of the white man. They get suspicious and threatened when they hear people talking in the other language, which happens. But in the workplace, come on. They get suspicious because people talking in Spanish immediately think that they're talking about them. Not like if my mom is sick. They don't think that. They don't think, oh my God, he's on the phone talking in Spanish, sounds stressed. Is there something wrong with his mom? Or that's not what they think. They're talking about me.
They think you're plotting
Exactly.
some.
Exactly.
So you've navigated several political climates over the last 40, 50 years.
Mhm.
Puerto Rico, United States, and then you've seen it in your travels.
Mhm.
How has the workplace landscape changed for you?
It has changed a lot. I think after, especially since like 1997 to now, um, I think everybody has started understanding each other. Now, keep in mind that I made it in a way in tech and engineering without DEI. There was no office saying if you were Latino, if you were from another place. It never said that. We simply had to assimilate and live the corporate world as it was presented to us. So we shifted. I mean, now we have like Latin organizations, we have Black History Month, we have um, Hispanic Month or Hispanic Heritage Month. We didn't have that when what I'm gonna call the first corporate settlers. We didn't have that at all. So I'm kind of happy that we made it this far. Now it is to note that around 2005, when I was working at an electric engineering company, some of the HR materials will have people from Central South Latin America being portrayed as lazy
Oh,
and that they were taking siestas. And then I was already a manager at the time. So I was trying to pretty much tell them to wake up from the siesta in PowerPoints. This is all simulated to learn how to manage. So already, even on 2005, Latin American Spanish speaking were portrayed as number one, lazy, and number two, inferior. Then I had to manage being Latin American.
well, that's racist.
That it was very it was blatantly racist. But at the time, it's almost like people didn't know any better. So we made it to this point, and I'm very happy we made it to this point. Sadly, though, I think we're gonna go back.
Do you ever feel that you were hired because of affirmative action?
No,
Like
never.
never having to fill a quota?
I don't think so. I don't think so. If somebody was filling a quota with me, they were very very subtle about it. But something that I have noticed in the corporate world is number one, at the end of the day, no one in corporate, especially HR, has a soul or cares about you. The only thing that I was hired, it was because my skill set and my knowledge and way to communicate was probably better than the other guy. And in the case of electric utilities, it was my ability to switch languages at the drop of a hat to be able for them to make a multi-million dollar sale. So I was used along the way, but hire per se, like your affirmative action hire, no, I don't think so.
All right. Well, thank you for this lovely chat about how you got here, your experience, and again, always enjoy having you on Pixels and Provocation.
Thank you, and looking forward to the next one.